Hi, welcome to Escape into a Cause, the podcast inspiring Central Texans to turn good intentions into impact. I'm Stephanie Dyer, a philanthropic rookie, learning how to give back with a little help from my expert friends. Together, we'll share stories of local nonprofits, explore ways to connect, and encourage everyone to step up, unplug, and make a difference. Let's dive in and escape into a cause. Hello, Courtney.
Hello.
My nonprofit expert.
Oh my gosh, I don't know about that. I don't even know what the word is, but nonprofit user, nonprofit participant. This word seems heavy.
A lot more than me. I just go look up some facts. Someone
You're
needs
so
to fact
good
check
at it,
me.
though.
Someone needs to fact check me.
But that's what you're passionate about.
I
love
do.
the data.
I
You
love
love
research.
the facts. You love demystifying things.
Oh, can't help myself. Okay, later in the episode, we are escaping into the National Hispanic Institute, an organization developing young Latino leaders through education, innovation, and civic engagement. They're not just preparing students for college, they're preparing them to lead the future.
Love that.
I do too.
Amazing. You're going to find out so much.
I'm excited. I don't always tie topics that matter to the nonprofit we interview, but I thought generational change doesn't happen by accident. I thought this would be a good topic. We love to celebrate stories of first generation college students, which again, first generation students are simply students where neither of their parents went to college.
Correct.
And there are a lot of facts. So 1 in 3 undergraduates in the US is a first generation college student. Can you believe that? 1 in 3?
That is amazing. And I think their grandparents didn't go either. They were the first in the family.
That's right. First generation.
That is amazing.
We love to celebrate the stories. They're
We do.
resilient. It shows grit. They're breaking barriers.
Trailblazers.
We love the underdog story.
Of course.
You're an underdog when you're coming up and your parents didn't go to college.
Right. That example was not set for you.
That's right.
Yeah.
But there's more to the story. They need support.
Of course.
We know that social mobility doesn't just require opportunity. It requires a support system, access, knowledge, navigation.
Yes.
What would you guess is the percentage of first-gen students that earn a bachelor degree within 8 years of enrollment?
I bet it's super high because I think these students are incredibly motivated.
Let's compare that to peers whose parents went to college.
All right, I'm ready.
The percentage of peers
Who are
whose parents
non-first gen.
non-first gen, our children would be in this
And they graduate
cohort.
within 8 years.
Years
I'm
with
ready.
a bachelor's degree. That's 50% of peers.
Man, that seems
50%.
low. I know.
Okay. What would you think is the percentage of first gen students?
70% plus.
27%.
What?
It's lower, unfortunately. They are twice as likely to leave college within 3 years, even when controlling for test scores and income. They even have the same income level or the same test scores, and they're twice as likely to leave college within 3 years.
Is it because of that support system?
I think it is. I will tell you, I took a class that was about the Mexican border. And it was one of those really small elective classes.
Yes.
There were 20 of us, and 12 were from Mexico and likely first-gen students, most of them. I noticed a few of them, especially ones that were from schools on the border, they struggled a lot more with essays, with everything in that class. When I talked to them about it, their parents didn't speak English. They didn't have the same help and mentorship that I did.
Yeah.
Luckily, we had such a fantastic professor, and you could just see that they were making strides even in college.
Yep.
It has nothing to do with their intelligence, that they weren't given the same foundation and support system.
Yeah.
It rings true with me in my experience, and that's a very anecdotal, but just to back up the numbers, it makes sense that if they feel like they're struggling, they might leave. Clearly, they need a support system. I think about it, and my kids will have my support system if they go to college. They will have me to call and to say, how are you doing on your grades? I think that it's going to be more difficult for first-gen students to have that same level of support. And let's say my kid, I'm putting him in tutoring in high school. That's resources.
Absolutely.
Then maybe the question is, what kind of support do you think we could give first-gen students that would keep them in school longer and graduating at the same rates as their peers?
We definitely talked about mentorship and connecting them with mentors. It sounds like the nonprofit organization that you're about to talk to might be one of their pillars, the resources that they offer first-gen students. But you're so right. When you grow up in a family where English is a second language, and then you are thrown into a university where you are only spoken to in English and you're expected to write pretty sophisticated essays in English, that is a transition that certainly you and I can't appreciate, but it's probably underestimated how difficult that is. You and I grew up in homes where higher education was just almost expected, right? And I think people are being a little bit more alternative about that right now, which is really interesting, but it was just expected. It was spoken about. College tours. I know you just went on that tour out west. If that's not part of your upbringing, it makes everything more difficult. difficult when you're seeing it for the first time, when you don't know what your options are and your opportunities, and mentorship, experiences, perhaps a tutor, if that is something that these students need when it comes to either a particular course that they're dealing with in a subject, or just how to approach college. Because all of a sudden, this freedom that you have and these expectations that are placed upon you and the self-discipline that you have to harness, that's not taught in high school. Usually that is taught in the home. Again, if you're growing up without anyone having that experience, they don't have the ability, the experience to teach that and pass that on to their sons and daughters. There's a whole bevy of different resources and tools that we can provide first-gen students to make them more successful.
You were mentioning that I did college tours in California. We went to USC, UCLA, and a couple others with my son. And I was so surprised the percentage of first-gen undergrads. How many do you think were at UT? First generation undergrads comprised how much of the UT student body?
8%.
23%.
Wow. That is so much higher than I would have thought, obviously.
Isn't that amazing? The 4-year graduation rate for these UT students increased from almost 40% in 2013, almost 40% graduated, to 66% in 2023. Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
And I'm telling you, it's those support in those
Absolutely.
programs. And first-gen students can be all genders, races, economic levels.
Absolutely.
Of course, I tie it more with being in California and Texas. So many either classmates or friends that were Mexican. One of my best friend's house in high school, her parents did not speak any English.
Yeah.
That support system is so important. And because we were doing tours in the California system, I was so surprised by these stats. But the UC, the University of California system, 37% of UC undergrads were first generation. Isn't that incredible?
Amazing. It's incredible. And rightfully so, there's a lot of scholarships that are fully committed to students who are first generational college students. Again, rightfully so, because we talk about generational wealth. And we do know that at this time, although who knows what it'll be 10, 20 years from now, a college educated individual against a peer who is not college educational still has the ability to make more money and earn a higher salary in their lifetime. These are the sort of things that can help break open generational wealth and give a path towards more opportunities.
We're going to escape into NHI, but I've already chatted with Austin Soundwaves, which 80% of their students are Hispanic. And just to give them above and beyond the academics, to give them a space where they can go and create music. It opens up so many doors and helps you identify who you are as a kid. And I love the access and I love these programs. We know that most people that are successful did it with a community, did it with a mentor, did it with the right guidance. It's so important. If you add academic advising and tutoring, financial aid counseling, mental health and well-being support, career guidance and internships, and family and engagement and cultural connection. But these aren't just add-ons, they're foundational. It says that when first-gen students receive this kind of support, their graduation rates increase by 20 to 30%.
That's amazing. They are on an equal level with those coming from families that had generational educational opportunities.
Exactly.
I mean, that gets them there.
It's not just about opportunities, it's about access, which that's why I'm really excited to dive into NHI. Some other stats, first-gen college graduates earn 70% more over their lifetime compared to peers without a degree. They are more likely to give back in public service or education or become a role model in their community. It's so important to give to those nonprofits and to give to those programs.
Yeah. We talk about so much of development, and philanthropy is about storytelling, and they have a hell of a story to tell. That's a powerful story.
They do. All right. Thanks, Court.
Thanks, Steph.
We'll be right back. Escape into a Cause is sponsored by Nightlight Insurance Agency. You know how a nightlight gives you comfort and peace of mind in the dark? That's exactly what Nightlight aims to do. Guide you through life's uncertainties with personalized insurance for your home, auto, business, and more. Nightlight Insurance strives to provide its clients the best coverage at the best price without sacrificing on customer service. Here's what one client had to say. Nightlight was able to lower our car insurance significantly, answered all our questions, and returned our calls promptly. Very professional, would highly recommend. So it's no surprise Nightlight has a 5-star rating on Google. Nightlight also makes this podcast possible by covering production costs so all other sponsorship dollars and gifts can go directly to nonprofits and volunteers. And as part of their mission to give back, Nightlight proudly donates $1,000 to every nonprofit we interview. If you are a sponsor interested in giving back to our podcast, please find us on social media and let us know. Nightlight is an agency focused on personalized service and giving back. See how much you could save and how good it feels to have peace of mind by visiting nightlightinsurance.com. Today, we are escaping into National Hispanic Institute, and we have Lucas Castillo-West and Isa Matamoros, both seniors at Liberal Arts and Science Academy, or LASA, here in Austin. Hi, welcome, guys.
Hi.
Hello.
NHI, National Hispanic Institute. Could you tell us a little bit about what NHI does?
NHI is a basically international organization. The whole idea is to help high schoolers step into their authenticity as leaders, develop leadership skills, develop critical thinking and their public speaking. They do this through summer programs, and there's summer programs for different steps of high school. There's one for freshmen, and then sophomores, and then juniors about to go into college. Each program is designed to help the students develop a different skill that is going to help them in their future life. On top of that, all of these programs revolve around the Latino community. It's not just developing yourself as a leader, but it's how do you develop yourself as a leader within the Latino community? How do you develop yourself as a leader and also bring up the Latino community as you become that leader? That's what NHI is all about.
Yeah, that's awesome. And listeners can listen to you guys. You're 18 years old, so you have just become adults. Welcome to adulthood. Do you feel like adults?
Not really. Yeah.
This is a great example of showing your leadership skills, and I've been impressed with both of you already. So can't wait to escape more into NHI. NHI is nationwide, and specifically for you guys, you're at LASA. Are y'all connected with NHI members at other schools here in Austin? Is it primarily in your school? What is the reach here in Austin?
It's pretty widespread throughout Austin. There's people from Ann Richards, Austin High, all over Austin. All the high schools we have had participants, and they continue to come back and continue to staff. We have some pretty wide reach throughout Austin, and we've tried to go to every school around Austin. We've done a lot of work with schools as to try to recruit for NHI to really permeate NHI throughout Austin, because we really do think that it's something that should be an opportunity that everybody has the chance to get.
Besides Austin, we've also had the opportunity to expand into the greater Austin area. We have some students as far as Round Rock and Leander, and as far south as Hayes and Buda. It's been really cool to, as Lucas said, have different students from all different kinds of schools come together and be part of NHI.
How many students are in NHI at your school at LASA?
A fair amount.
I would say at least a good 20, considering the freshmen too.
All in total. Usually a large part of our group that we take to the Great Debate every year is made up of LASA students. We've done a pretty good job of working to recruit and build up an NHI community within LASA.
That's awesome. I did look at the impact report on the website, and there's 1,500 participants in 2024 nationwide. And in Austin, 23 high schools. So there's a wide reach, which is great. And then it boasts a network of over 100,000 alumni. Hopefully you get some reach there as well as you're coming into your own. I have a 16-year-old and we're doing college tours. So it's good to have that alumni network, I'm sure. As we switch gears into more of the impact and numbers, tell us a little bit about some of the programs. You're talking about the Great Debate, Isa. Did y'all want to talk about that a little bit more and explain what that is?
The Great Debate is the freshman year program, and there's different Great Debates throughout the country. There's one in California, there's one in the Midwest, there's one in the Northeast, and there's actually going to be 3 in Texas this year. But the one that we are most involved with is the 4-day Great Debate in Sherman. So the idea is that there are teams all across Texas. We have an Austin team, a San Antonio team, one in Brownsville, one in El Paso. I think all the major metro areas, they have a team. What we do is we train them for debates in different categories. There's mock trial, there's cross-examination, extemporaneous speaking. There's also an oratory speaking category. And again, it's similar to what I said before. They're debating topics about the Latino community, and they're developing their public speaking skills while debating about the Latino community and what's best for the future of the Latino community. They go to trainings every week to prepare for this big debate event. Then in the first week of June, this year it's going to be in Austin College, and they all go and they do their debate rounds and they compete to see which team can get the most points and the silver cup.
Tell us, what are some of the debates or the topics that you found interesting or enjoyed?
2 years ago, the cross-examination category for the Great Debate, their topic was about art and the portrayal of Latinos in media. And I thought that discussion was one of the most interesting. I remember watching that final round on stage. A lot of the points that were brought up by both sides were good points to be made. There was a lot of discussion on like how Latinos are portrayed and how stereotypes are reinvigorated through the media that we watch every day, but also how media can be a great way for us to break those stereotypes and show a new side of us. And that discussion meant a lot for me.
Yeah, I think that's true from a lot of different cultures, ethnicities, and backgrounds, how media is portrayed. Even Longoria has been very passionate about this. She's talked about that quite a bit. A few other things that I saw, which just shows how great NHI is. 98% of NHI alumni pursue higher education, which is significant. That's much higher than the general population. 90% of those are graduating within 5 years, and 67% of these alumni continue into advanced graduate studies. For those that are wondering, you have students coming in or you want to donate money, this shows a really great impact. At the beginning of each episode, we have a Topics That Matter where I talk with my co-host, Courtney, who's the president of the Junior League of Austin. Specifically, we talked about generational change doesn't happen by accident, and it's specifically first generation college students. And the reason why I found that to be so important for me is half of my closest Hispanic friends growing up were first gen born in the US and first generation college. I know neither of you are first gen.
I'm first born in the US, but not first gen college. My parents, they are from Venezuela. And so the whole college process, applying to college, was completely new to them because they did their undergrad over there in Venezuela. From the standpoint of college preparations we were talking about, one is giving me an opportunity to talk about something I really like about college applications. You're writing essays, you're talking about your activities. NHI is something that I've gotten involved in since freshman year, and I've been able to write a lot about, which has been pretty great. But also from the standpoint of personal experience, I've grown so much as a person because of NHI. For example, I used to be pretty shy as a freshman, and now I'm over here about to go to college, and I'm reaching out to all these random people I've never met before, trying to find a roommate, trying to figure out how things are for class registration, and I'm thinking about rushing too. So I'm basically networking with all these complete strangers. I think back to how I was in freshman year, and I don't even think freshman year me could have even comprehended that level of networking. I would have been way too scared to do that. NHI is what has given me the confidence to reach out because I now know that I have it within me to take the initiative, to find the answers, to help myself out and get the things that I need to get done. So from the point of view of just personal growth and learning how to take initiative, it has been really impactful.
We talked about this. NHI is not just for Hispanic students, and that's just to show that anyone can come in and build that confidence and that leadership through the program. That's great. Lucas, what about your experience?
I definitely agree with Isa. A lot of leadership and confidence that I've gained from NHI. A big part of NHI for me was the community that I've built and the people that I've met through NHI, because I participated in the Texas Great Debate. So I met all of these people all across Texas, but I also did the American LDZ, which was in Maryland or Washington, D.C. I got to meet people from like all over. I met people from Mexico, the Dominican Republic. So it was really this big like swath of people that I was meeting. And now that I'm going to college and I'm moving somewhere far away from Texas, I know people now that are going to the same college as me through NHI. Those connections that I've built and those friendships that I have, and being able to not feel so isolated anywhere I go because I always have this community centered around NHI is the most important thing to me, because it gives me a sense that I'll never be alone and that I'll always have somebody there for me, even if I'm not best friends with them. But I know that we have something in common and something to talk about and share about.
Yeah, a sense of belonging. I've always said you got to relate on a few things to build a relationship, and there's that instant connectivity, which is great. Yeah. Awesome. Are there any other stories you'd like to share to connect listeners to NHI?
I can talk about the growth of our chapter here in Austin, because when Lucas and I did the Great Debate, we started out with a team of 10 people, which, to put things into perspective, you're normally supposed to go with a team with about 30. We were one of those teams of 10 going against teams of 30 from other regions. So it was very nerve-wracking at the time, but what's been pretty inspiring throughout these years is that people like Lucas and I came back and we said, okay, we're going to coach the next generation of students. And then we were able to recruit a bunch of students for the next year. And even though we didn't get to a full team, we were still able to do pretty well in the debate. We even had one of the partner categories in cross-examination. They won their category championship, which is a big deal because we were the underdog team. And then the next year, which was last year, we were able to go to the Great Debate with a full team, which was an even better achievement. Not only were we able to go compete at the same level as the other teams now for the first time in years, but the students competed really well. Not only did they win accolades such as one of the girls, she won her category championship in oratory. In mock trial, we had duo be in the final four. But just besides the surface level achievement, a lot of them grew so much internally. In the first few meetings when they were showing up, they'd be super shy and they don't really want to talk and they're like, oh, I don't really know what I'm doing here. But after going through the trainings and interacting with the coaches, they've worked their way up to volunteering to speak in front of a crowd of 300 people at the ceremonies, which is crazy to think about. I'm just really proud of the growth that our chapter has had in the Austin community. I'm glad that we've been able to go from the underdogs to a real contender in these kinds of competitions.
It seems like has allowed a lot of students to find their voice.
Yes.
So great. Any other stories that you'd like to share?
I can share a story. When I went to the American LDZ,
Tell us what LDZ stands for.
Lorenzo de Zavala, which, gosh, it has some historical reference to some Texan Mexican pioneer. There's some significance. I should probably know it. I don't. But we have a building named after it. That was totally extraneous. Back on topic. There's this kid that I met at the American LDZ. He wanted to be a Supreme Court justice, and you have to go through a youth legislative session. There's applied positions, so you have to apply. So he applied and he did a speech, and it was a really good speech, and he felt really good about it. And then he ended up not getting it, and he wasn't a Supreme Court justice. And he was really sad about it for a little bit, but then he kind of lifted himself back up, and then he became a part of the president's cabinet and did a lot of work there and was important to the presidency and all of the things that were happening at this youth legislative session. That kind of experience just embodies what NHI is. You will face these setbacks, you will face these disadvantages that are inevitable, but you have to teach yourself to get back up and to continue to persevere and try. And that's the spirit of what NHI is trying to teach kids to do, to never give up, to always believe in yourself and to always believe in what you have and what you have to offer. And maybe you don't get everything that you want all the time, but you always have to know your own self-worth and be able to use that self-worth to get what you want and to continue pushing yourself forward.
Amazing. Resilience, perseverance, community leadership, a lot of great things. Ethan, you had someone that you wrote about in your essay. Did you want to speak to that?
Last year, one of our students, he was from Nicaragua and he did not speak a lot of English. It was one of those cases where I mentioned earlier that he came in pretty shy. He was excited, but he was shy. Understandably, he didn't speak the same language and it was a lot of new content. What we made sure to do as coaches is we kept encouraging him. If he wanted to share his thoughts in Spanish, he would share his thoughts in Spanish. And we made sure to put him in a category where he was able to speak Spanish. So we put him in the oratory speaking category where you give a 5-minute speech. The topic of that year was to write about somebody who changed social narratives or who made an impact in their community. I remember him growing through writing that speech. He wrote about a poet from Nicaragua and just seeing him be able to develop his narrative and then also develop his speaking skills, starting to show a lot of passion about it because he was passionate about it. Seeing all of that, it was really fulfilling. It was really impactful to me just seeing how much a student can grow. And similar to how I mentioned earlier, he was one of those students that before he was really shy. And then when we went to the great debate, he's volunteering to stand up on stage and give this a little bit of a monologue in front of everybody. And there's about 270 students in there, which is crazy to think that he was able to build up the confidence through this program and through the great debate training. It was really impactful to me.
That's amazing. Public speaking, we know, is the number one fear for most people. It's true. And I think it takes a lot. I wish I had done some type of debate course or club in NHI where it built leadership and speaking skills because that's something that's so valuable when you're young. Right now, I would hate to speak in front of 300 people. The first 3 episodes of this podcast, I hated being in front of the mic. It took me like 3 or 4 episodes to even get comfortable behind a mic, and y'all both look very comfortable. So kudos to NHI. I do make every one of my guests talk about a good brag. Hopefully you've thought of one, of something that you're proud of that you've done recently. Lucas, do you have a good brag to share of something that you've done good recently outside of NHI?
I'm the president of my school's diversity council, and I'm also a member of the equity council of our district. I've done a lot of work, not just school-wide, but district-wide, working to create more inclusive and diverse spaces within and to combat a lot of the prejudices that we are seeing. I think most recently what we've been working on in the equity council is that there are a lot of African American and Hispanic students that are especially targeted for detentions and for to have to go to lunch suspension or whatever they're doing to punish these kids. But there's a disproportionate amount of those punishments going to those African American and Hispanic students. We were doing a lot of conversation. How do we combat the kind of inherent biases that we have within ourselves and that teachers have? And how do we create or make those numbers become more equal across all of the races? We've been doing a lot of work with that, which I think is really amazing and really valuable to work towards less prejudice and less discrimination within and everywhere.
Oh, that's a great point. I wonder how much data is actually being collected on that at the school level. Lucas, is there really a lot of data?
Because the Equity Council does a lot of work within the district because it is something connected to AISD. There's a lot of data connected to what is the percentage of these kids that are being taken, what are their races for detentions and stuff, and what are these percentage of these kids that are actually Black and Hispanic at these schools, seeing how those numbers compare. And what we've seen is they're pretty disparate. And even in recent years, the difference between those two numbers has even gotten worse or has stayed the same. There's a lot of extensive data to show oh, this is a problem that probably needs to be dealt with and probably is something that's not very good.
That's amazing. I haven't thought about it that young because you think about it with prisons. There's a lot of data out there and the outcomes once found guilty are more severe for people of color. That's great work that you're already doing. That's great. Isa, what's your good brag?
One thing that I've been involved with at my school is that for my AP seminar class, we have been working on making an archive for the school that was in our building before we were. Just to give a brief summary of the history, Johnston High School was the original school that was in the building that LASA is currently in, and I think it was built in 1960, somewhere around there. They actually ended up being one of the schools that was forced to integrate, and there were kids coming from outside of the area where LASA is and from different parts of Austin, and they're coming there to be part of the government mandated integration programs after Brown v. Board of Education. What happened was that Johnston ended up being one of the model schools on a national level for this kind of integration. But then after AISD was released from those mandates, things went back to the way they were. Long story short, the school kind of exchanged hands a couple of times, and now LASA is in the school. My librarian is doing an initiative she had with one of the Johnston alumni to preserve the nature of the school because Johnston is no longer a school. It's now Eastside Memorial, and they're located in a different campus. To preserve the history of the school, they started looking through all these archives of yearbooks, newspapers, and starting to upload them digitally. On top of that, they have been contacting previous alumni and interviewing them just to have an oral recording of what was their high school experience like. They've had alumni from before the integration, after, during. It's really interesting to be able to get all those different perspectives. I've been one of the people that has been interviewing these alumni, and I've loved it. It's really interesting to hear their stories, especially because they went to high school many years before I did. It's interesting to see how has high school stayed the same, how it's different. I also just think it's important to preserve the history of Johnston High School, especially now that they're under a different name and we're using their building. It's important for students to know we're not just in some random school. We're in Johnston's building, and there was a school before this, and they had a history, and they even made some pretty good accomplishments. They were state basketball champions a couple of years. They made a big impact on a lot of the students, the teachers, and the principals. So it's been a really interesting project. And I was even able to recruit somebody to be interviewed for that because some of the members of the leadership team from NHI actually went to Johnston during the period of the busing and the integration. So they were able to come in and get interviewed for that project. So it's pretty cool.
Wow, some really neat stories. Both of your good brags go to show that it's not just leadership and community, but y'all are very passionate about issues and y'all are actually tackling them, which is so cool to see at your age. That's a really great story. Thanks, Isa. I guess the question that you've probably been asked all senior year is what by parents?
Where are you going to college?
Where are you going to college? Are y'all going to college next year? Have you been accepted? Have you confirmed?
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing?
I'm going to Yale.
Yale. Okay, that's a small school somewhere, right? No, I'm just kidding. That's amazing, Lucas. Isa, where are you going?
I'm going to University of Georgia.
That's amazing. Congrats, you guys. After all those questions for so long of where are you going, what are you interested in, aren't you glad that's over and you're finally accepted somewhere?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's necessarily over, but now it's like I have to give the same spiel. Yeah, I'm going to University of Georgia. I'm doing international affairs and blah, blah, blah. These are my interests, what I'm looking for. Yes, I love Athens. The whole spiel. Yesterday, we actually had a get-together in our neighborhood, and I gave that spiel maybe at least 5 times to 5 different people.
Great. Just tell them to listen to the podcast now. No, I'm really trying to hold my tongue every time I'm around a teenager now, but it's so hard. Congrats. That's so exciting. So you've had your good brags. We've learned about you. Let's give listeners chance for bragging rights. Can you share some ideas on how they can show up for NHI?
One thing that obviously helps is if you have a student who's about to enter in high school or is currently in high school, getting them involved with the program, because one thing that really makes NHI is the students, not only the students that become participants and undergo the trainings and the programs, but the students who come back and volunteer like Lucas and I. It's important to inform yourself about the programs, and if you're interested, sign them up. It's an investment for sure, but it's an investment in your student to be able to develop those leadership skills and really find their confidence and learn how to take initiative. There's so many things. And also, as Lucas mentioned, find a community of so many interesting and cool Latino students who are like-minded and are high achieving. It's a really great experience. 100% would recommend. On top of that, people can also donate on NHI's website to the cause because it is a nonprofit. All of the money that goes to the organization just goes back to the programs and ensuring that the programs are the best they can possibly be. If you wanted to make a donation specifically to the Austin chapter, whenever you make the donation on the website, just make sure to say this goes to NHI Austin, and they'll make sure those funds go specifically to our chapter.
Great. Show up anyone that's coming up as a freshman, sophomore, junior in high school. If you're a parent, if you're an aunt or uncle, if you're a grandparent, if you're a friend, if you're the student, NHI is a great place to go. You do have to be in academically good standing of a 3.0 unweighted GPA. You have to show up academically, and then you do not have to be part of the Latino community. Anyone can come and show up and support the Latino community. Just out of curiosity, actually, now that we're speaking about that, you've talked about how this has built your leadership skills, your speaking skills. And clearly, y'all are both passionate about issues that speak to the Latino community. Has this program gotten you closer and more connected to the Latino community, do you think?
Definitely. I've met a lot of other Latinos and I've built community through them, but I've also worked to build up my community within myself. I was kind of like disconnected from my Latino side because I'm only like half Hispanic. So to be surrounded by these other Latinos in an environment where we're talking about leadership and being Latino and what it means and the problems that we might have to face, having that community and having those discussions really helped me to connect with my own culture a lot more, which I also think is another pretty valuable part about NHI. By building myself up and by building up my own connection within my own culture, I've been able to just connect with others more and connect within my Latino community because I feel like less of an outsider and I feel like I have more belonging because of NHI.
I was going to say pretty much a very similar thing. I mentioned both my parents are from Venezuela, but I grew up in an English-speaking neighborhood. We spoke some Spanish at home, so that's why I can speak Spanish, but I grew up in an English-speaking neighborhood, went to English-speaking schools surrounded by mostly Anglo kids. Growing up, I always had a little bit of uncertainty. Okay, yes, I'm Hispanic, but you look at my face and you don't think, wow, she's Hispanic, just because Hispanic people come from all shades of the rainbow. But anyways, I feel like before NHI, I had that bit of insecurity of, okay, I want to be Hispanic and I'm proud that I'm Hispanic, but it doesn't really show. Being part of NHI and meeting people from all over, not just the US, but also from Mexico and other countries, I feel like I don't need to show people I'm part of the Hispanic community. I'm actively being involved with NHI, and even outside of NHI, I've been able to step into spaces where I don't need to prove myself to anyone necessarily. I can just do what I like to do and just keep networking with these Hispanic people that I became friends with NHI. Similar to Lucas, it's really helped me forget about societal pressures of this and that and more just focus on what truly matters, which with NHI is building up the Latino communities, not necessarily, oh, do we have to fit a certain stereotype or do we have to tell people a certain thing? It's just, let's see what is most important to us and what we need to do to advance our community as a whole. What's cool about it too, like Lucas said, is that just literally anyone can join. Doesn't matter if you're half Hispanic, a quarter Hispanic, not Hispanic at all. Anybody can be part of the cause, which I think has also been very impactful for me.
It sounds like especially students that are maybe in less diverse schools would see a huge benefit from joining this program. And bring your Anglo friend if you don't have enough. My son's in Westlake and the diversity is abysmal. Anyway, that's fantastic. Show up as students, or if you have anyone that's becoming a high school student, and donate. Donate because that helps you guys with scholarships, travel costs, to show up and go to those debates. You guys, thank you so much. Y'all have been so impressive. And if anything, clearly you can get into a really good school if you join NHI.
They definitely give you the resources, especially in the college. It's called the Collegiate World Series, and that's the junior year program. I won't give too much of it away, but they help you a lot, and they do a lot of like mock rounds of college related things that help you get an idea of what you want to convey in your college application.
That's great. Mock interviews, those are always good. All right. Thank you guys so much.
Glad that we were able to talk about this on this podcast.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Hey, listeners. Let's be honest. I was not doing anything like what Lucas and Isa are doing when I was their age. I was just being a teenager, figuring things out, not starting school history projects or building inclusive school policy or competing in structured debates for fun. But that is exactly what they are doing. Isa is helping preserve the history of Johnston High School, the original school, in the LASA building, one that became a national model for integration in the 60s. I loved hearing that story come from her. She is so passionate. She knew so much about the history, and she was so excited because, I mean, really, how many students may not have any idea what happened in those halls before them? And there's incredible students like Isa who are digitizing archives and interviewing alumni, including former NHI leaders. There's a network there, and making sure that history doesn't get erased. And she's doing this for a school that doesn't even carry the Johnston name. And that kind of awareness and drive at 18, it is rare. But maybe I'm finding that it's not as rare as I thought, because there is Lucas. Lucas is focused on equity too, calling out the disproportionate disciplinary actions affecting students of color and pushing for changes at his school. And together, they've both helped turn NHI Austin from an underdog to a real contender at the Great Debate. And who doesn't love an underdog story? And Isa and Lucas made that happen. And here's the thing. This isn't just about two standout students. NHI builds young people like this on purpose, and they've been doing it for decades. In our Topics That Matter, Courtney and I talked about first-generation college students, many of whom are Hispanic and many of whom are navigating high education with no roadmap. They face real barriers, academic, financial, emotional, and programs like NHI don't just help them get to college, they prepare them to lead once they're there. And that is extremely apparent from my conversations and my interview with these two college-bound leaders. Let's not pretend this is a small thing. Hispanic Americans make up nearly 20% of the U.S. population. And now get this fun fact. I couldn't believe it when I read it. Latino-owned businesses have grown 44% in the last decade compared to 4% for other groups. The drive is there. The impact is happening. What's needed is more and more leadership. With only 11% of seats being held by Latinos, there needs to be programs like NHI. Here's how you can earn your bragging rights. Do you know a high school student? Tell them about NHI. Donate. Reoccurring donations help all nonprofits sustain their work month over month, year over year. You can help students grow their voice and their confidence. Volunteer. You don't have to be an expert. You just have to care. And do you like hockey? Do you want Texas Stars hockey tickets? If you're showing up for NHI, post it on your social media. You can DM us at Escape Into a Cause. Just have the hashtag GoodBrag and let us know how you are showing up for any nonprofit, and you will be entered to win Texas Stars hockey tickets, because the Texas Stars Foundation loves to give to those that give back. Thank you, Lucas, Isa, and the National Hispanic Institute for letting us escape into your world and showing us what it looks like when young leaders aren't just empowered, they are equipped. And thank you to Nightlight Insurance for sponsoring this episode and donating $1,000 to support their mission. Thank you to Todd Thompson for editing and mixing, Graham Thompson and Jaden Dyer for the music, Ashlyn O'Neill for the digital content management, and Corey McCain at Just Push Record Studios. Next week, we will escape into I Live Here, I Give Here and explore what it means to give back in a city that's always growing. Thank you for joining. Remember, Show up for nonprofits, and I hope you join us next week as we escape into a cause.